Picture a land completely torn apart by warring kingdoms, surrounded by huge, expanding empires. In the middle of all that, one man had a vision that honestly seemed impossible. This is the story of how Nepal was forged, right out of chaos and conflict.
I mean, really try to imagine it. It's this rugged, mountainous landscape, but it's not one country. It's a mosaic, a patchwork of dozens of tiny states, all fighting with each other. It was a place of constant backstabbing and shifting loyalties, all while these giant empires were creeping closer and closer right on its doorstep. So, the big question is, right? How did this incredibly fractured region somehow become a single, unified country? Who had the vision to pull it all together? And how did they manage to succeed when so many others had failed? That's really the core question we're digging into here. Okay, so first, let's get the lay of the land. Before there was a Nepal, the whole area was just this collection of small, independent kingdoms. Each one had its own ruler, its own army, and its own big ambitions. The region was pretty much broken up into a few key groups. Out west, you had the Bey's states, a loose group of about 22 kingdoms. In the central part, you had the Shabbasis, or the 24 kingdoms. And then the real prize, controlling the super fertile valley and the key trade routes to Tibet, were the 3 wealthy but always squabbling Mala kingdoms. Let's just say unity was not their thing. Fighting over trade routes was definitely the norm. But into this world of constant division, a new figure enters the stage. In the year 1779 of the Nepali calendar, a prince was born in the small but pretty ambitious kingdom of Gorkha. His name was Prithvi Narayan Shah, and well, he was about to change everything. Even from a young age, this guy was different. He was known for being not just smart, but incredibly far-sighted. While all the other rulers were busy with their petty squabbles, he was looking at the bigger picture. He saw this massive threat on the horizon, the British East India Company, which was just swallowing up land to the south. He just knew that if the kingdoms stayed divided, they were all going to be picked off, one by one. And his whole understanding of the world is just perfectly captured in his most famous quote. He compared the region to a yam, a root vegetable, that was being squeezed between 2 gigantic boulders, the powerhouse of China to the north and British India to the south. For him, a unified Nepal wasn't just a nice idea, it was the only way to survive. So, armed with this incredible vision, Prithvi Narayan Shah didn't just sit around and hope for unity. Nope, he began a full-on military campaign to forge it himself. This was the beginning of a journey that would literally redraw the map of this entire region forever. His first major target was this strategic fort called Nuwakot, a critical hub for trade. And his first attack? It was a total failure. But here's the thing that made him different. He didn't give up. Instead, he learned from his mistakes. He rebuilt his army and he came up with a totally new plan. And on the second try, he crushed it. It was a huge early sign of his incredible resilience. That victory at Nuwakot was just step 1 in his absolute master plan to take the wealthy Kathmandu Valley. It was a brilliant multi-step strategy. First, take Nuwakot to basically choke off their trade and their money. Then he encircled the entire valley, cutting them off from any supplies or help. And the final move? Pure genius. He launched a surprise attack on Kathmandu during a huge festival, Indra Jatra, when everyone's guard was down. The other 2 Malla kingdoms didn't stand a chance after that. All this brings up one of the most fascinating questions in South Asian history. At a time when the British Empire was basically gobbling up territory all over the world, how on earth did Nepal manage to stay independent? Well, the answer is really a mix of a few key things. First, the geography itself. The rugged Himalayas made any kind of invasion an absolute nightmare. Plus, the Gorkha army was legendary for being incredibly fierce and for mastering guerrilla warfare in those mountains. But just as important, maybe even more so, was the leadership of Prithvi Narayan Shah. He put policies in place that pushed for self-reliance, and he was super cautious about any foreign influence, keeping the powerful British at a safe distance. So, when we look back at all this, what's the lasting impact of this unbelievable campaign? The dream of a unified Nepal wasn't built in a day. It was hammered out, forged in conflict, over decades of struggle. And here's the fact that actually surprises a lot of people. The whole unification process wasn't even completed in Prithvi Narayan Shah's lifetime. It was a multi-generational project. After he died, his sons and successors kept the campaign going, expanding the kingdom for decades more. Creating modern Nepal was a long, hard road of sustained struggle and sacrifice. When you step back and think about it, it's pretty incredible.
A vision that started in this one small hill kingdom, totally fueled by one man's determination. It grew and grew until it became the proud, independent nation that we see on the map today. It is an absolutely extraordinary story.
And that leaves us with one last really fascinating question to think about. What if he had never existed? What if that one prince from Gorkha hadn't had that unique vision and that unstoppable will? Would the nation of Nepal even be here today? It's a powerful thought, right? A reminder of how one single person can truly change the entire course of history.